Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Rob Dial here. Raise your hand if you've ever scrolled through social media, seen everyone out with their big friend groups, laughing, living their best lives, and you felt that little pang, like, why don't I have that? Why am I always the one flying solo? If that's you, or if you know someone like that, stick with me for the next few minutes, because today we're diving into something powerful, the 5 personality traits that people without close friends often share. But here's the game changer. These aren't flaws. They're actually hidden strengths that, when you understand them, can help you build deeper, more meaningful connections, or embrace your solitude as a superpower. Let's level up your relationships starting right now. All right, let's dive into the first one, because this is where a lot of people get stuck in their heads about friendships. The number one personality trait that shows up over and over in people who don't have a big circle of friends is this: they're highly independent. And I want you to hear me clearly on this. It's not a weakness. It's actually one of the most powerful strengths you can have. Think about it. These are the people who don't need a group chat blowing up their phone to feel okay. They don't panic when plans fall through on a Friday night. They can go to a movie alone, eat at a restaurant alone, travel alone, and not just survive it, they actually enjoy it. They've built a life where their own company is enough. They get their energy from within, not from the crowd. And in a world where so many people are terrified of being by themselves, that level of independence is rare. It's powerful. It's freedom. I've talked to hundreds of you who feel like something's wrong because you don't have a ton of friends, and almost every single time when we dig a little deeper, what comes up is this deep sense of self-reliance. You're the one who figures things out on your own. You don't call 5 people for advice before making a decision. You research, you reflect, you trust your gut, and you move. You've probably handled some of the hardest moments of your life without leaning on a big support system, and you came out stronger because of it. That's not loneliness talking, that's strength. But here's where it gets interesting. That same independence that serves you so well can quietly become the thing that keeps deeper connections at a distance. Because when you're used to doing everything on your own, asking for help, reaching out, or even just sharing what's going on in your day can start to feel unnecessary. Like, why would I bother someone else when I can handle this myself? Or worse, if I let them in, what if they let me down? I'm better off alone. And before you know it, that self-sufficiency turns into a wall. Not because you don't like people, but because you've gotten so good at not needing them that inviting them in feels almost foreign. I remember years ago, I went through a phase where I prided myself on being the lone wolf. I'd tell myself, I don't need a bunch of friends, I've got my goals, my routines, my growth. And on the surface, it looked strong. I was productive, focused, crushing it. But underneath, there was this quiet ache. Not desperation, not sadness exactly, but a knowing that something was missing. Real connection. The kind where someone knows the real you, not just the highlight reel, and still chooses to stick around. The truth is, independence and connection aren't enemies, they're teammates. The strongest people I know are the ones who can stand completely on their own 2 feet and still choose to let the right people walk beside them. They don't need a crowd, but they make space for a few deep, real relationships because they understand that sharing your life doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. So if this is you, if you're the independent one listening right now, here's what I want you to do. Start small. Send that text you've been thinking about sending. Invite someone to grab coffee, even if it feels a little awkward at first. Share one real thing, one win, one struggle, one random thought, and see what happens. You don't have to suddenly become the most social person in the room. You just have to remind yourself that letting someone in isn't a sign you're losing your independence. It's a sign you're strong enough to handle closeness without losing yourself. Because here's the bottom line, your independence isn't the problem. It's one of your greatest gifts. The shift happens when you stop seeing connection as something that threatens your freedom and start seeing it as something that can actually make your already powerful life even richer. You don't need 100 friends. You just need to stop letting your strength quietly push away the few who are worth letting in. All right, let's move into the second trait that shows up time and time again in people who don't have a large circle of friends. They're deeply introspective. And just like independence, this isn't some flaw you need to fix. It's one of the most beautiful parts of who you are. These are the people who spend real time with their own thoughts. While everyone else is out chasing the next distraction, filling every quiet moment with noise, podcasts, scrolls, parties, you're the one who can sit in silence and actually feel at home there. You ask yourself the big questions. You replay conversations not to overthink and beat yourself up, but to learn, to grow, to understand why you reacted the way you did. You journal, you meditate, you read books that challenge you, you reflect on your day before bed. You're constantly leveling up the relationship you have with yourself, and that makes you wiser, calmer, more grounded than most people ever get to be. I've seen this over and over. The people who tell me they don't have many friends are often the same ones who blow me away with their self-awareness. They know their triggers. They know their values. They've done the inner work that so many avoid because it's uncomfortable. And because of that, they walk through life with a quiet confidence that doesn't need external validation. They're not out there seeking approval from the crowd because they've already built a strong foundation inside. But here's the double-edged part of this gift. When you live so deeply in your own inner world, it can make the outer world feel a little optional. Small talk feels exhausting because your mind is used to operating on a deeper level. You'd rather sit alone with a book or your thoughts than force conversation that doesn't go anywhere meaningful. And over time, that preference for depth can turn into a pattern where you just don't share much of what's really going on inside. You get so comfortable processing everything solo that letting someone else into that space starts to feel vulnerable, unnecessary, even intrusive. I get it. I've been there. There was a season in my life where I was obsessed with personal growth, reading, journaling, meditating every day, and I told myself that was enough. I didn't need people because I had me. And yeah, I grew a ton. I became more peaceful, more clear, more intentional. But there was still this quiet gap, because no matter how deep you go within yourself, there are parts of the human experience that only come alive when you share them with someone else. Joy feels bigger when you tell someone about it. Pain feels lighter when someone truly hears it. Insights feel more real when you say them out loud and someone reflects them back to you. Being introspective doesn't mean you have to stay isolated. It actually gives you a massive advantage in building real connections, because when you do open up, it's not superficial, it's meaningful. You don't waste time on drama or gossip. You bring depth, loyalty, presence. The right people crave that. They're starving for conversations that go beyond the surface, and you're built for exactly that. So if this resonates, if you're the one who lives in your head, always reflecting, always growing, here's your next step. Take one piece of that rich inner world and share it. Not everything, not with everyone, just one real thought, one lesson you've learned, one question you've been sitting with. Send a voice note to someone you trust. Bring up a deeper topic next time you're talking to someone. Write that message you've been drafting in your mind but never hit send on. You don't have to dilute who you are or start loving small talk. You just have to let a few safe people see the depth that's already there. Because when you do, something powerful happens. You stop feeling like the quiet one on the outside, and you start becoming the person others feel safe going deep with. Your introspection isn't keeping you from connection. It's the very thing that will make your connections unbreakable when you choose to let the right people in. All right, let's talk about the third trait that almost always shows up in people who find themselves without a big circle of friends. They're extremely selective. And if you're nodding along right now, I want you to know this isn't you being picky or difficult. This is you protecting your peace, your energy, and your heart. It's one of the smartest things you do. These are the people who would genuinely rather have 0 friends than a bunch of fake ones. You don't collect relationships like trophies. You don't keep people around just to say you have plans on the weekend or to fill silence. If someone's energy feels off, if the conversation stays stuck on the surface, if there's even a hint of inconsistency or drama, you're out quietly, respectfully. But out, you've got high standards for loyalty, for depth, for authenticity. And you're not willing to lower them just to avoid being alone. I hear this all the time. People message me saying, I'm not antisocial, I just don't vibe with most people. Or I've tried making friends, but it always feels forced. And when we unpack it, what comes up is this fierce selectivity. You can spot inauthenticity from a mile away. You notice when someone's nice to your face but talks behind your back. You feel when a conversation is transactional instead of real. And because you value quality over quantity, you'd rather walk away than settle for something that drains you. This selectivity is a superpower. It keeps you away from toxic situations that a lot of people stay trapped in for years. It saves your time, your emotional energy, your mental health. You don't waste years on one-sided friendships or groups where you feel like an outsider. You've learned, maybe the hard way, that not everyone deserves access to you, and you honor that boundary like it's sacred. But here's the part we have to be real about. That same selectivity that protects you can also quietly keep great people at a distance. Because when your filter is set so high, it doesn't just block the wrong ones, it sometimes blocks the good ones before they even get a chance to prove themselves. You might write someone off after one shallow conversation, not realizing that most people need a little time to drop their guard and show their real selves. Or you assume someone won't match your depth, so you don't even try to go deeper with them. And over time, that high standard can turn into a high wall. I've lived this. There was a point where I was so selective that I basically had no one. I'd meet someone new, have 1 or 2 interactions, decide they weren't my people, and move on. I told myself I was just being smart, protecting my energy. But deep down, I knew I was also protecting myself from the risk of being let down. From investing in someone and having it not work out, it felt safer to stay solo than to take the chance. The turning point for me was realizing that selectivity doesn't have to mean isolation. You can have incredibly high standards and still give people a fair shot. You can be discerning without being closed off. The strongest connections I have now came from me practicing a little bit of patience, letting conversations unfold, sharing a little more than usual, seeing if someone could rise to the level I needed instead of assuming they couldn't. So if you're the selective one listening to this, here's your move. Keep your standards sky high, never lower them. But add one new habit, practice small doses of vulnerability with people who feel safe. Not everyone, not all at once, just one person at a time. Share something real early on. Ask a deeper question. See how they respond. The wrong people will weed themselves out faster than ever, and the right ones, they'll step up. They'll match you. They'll surprise you. Because the truth is, the world needs more people like you, people who refuse to settle for fake connections. But it also needs you in it, connected to the few who are worthy of your time. Your selectivity isn't pushing people away. It's waiting for the ones strong enough to earn their way in. Let a couple of them prove they belong there. All right? Let's bring this all together. We've talked about 5 powerful traits, actually 4 so far that we've gone deep on, and the 5th one we'll touch on another time. But here's what I want you to walk away with today. If you don't have a big circle of friends right now, it doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're behind. And it sure as hell doesn't mean you're destined to stay alone. What it means is that you're different in the best possible way. You're independent enough to stand strong on your own, you're introspective enough to know yourself deeply, you're selective enough to protect your peace, and you guard your vulnerability because you know your heart is worth protecting. These aren't the reasons you're alone, these are the reasons you're rare. The world is full of people chasing shallow connections, distracting themselves from their own emptiness, settling for relationships that drain them just so they don't have to face solitude. And then there's you choosing depth over distraction, growth over gossip, real over fake. That's not a flaw, that's a flex. But here's the truth I want etched in your mind. You don't have to choose between being powerfully yourself and having powerful connections. You get to have both. You get to keep every single one of these traits, the independence, the depth, the standards, the guarded heart, and still build relationships that light you up, that challenge you, that make your life richer. It starts with one decision: stop seeing these parts of you as the reason people stay away and start seeing them as the reason the right people will be drawn to you when you let them get close enough to feel it. So take that small step today. Send the text, share the real thought. Invite someone into your world, even just a little. Trust that the same strength that's carried you this far is the exact strength that will help you build the connections you deserve. Because you're not meant to do this life completely alone. You're meant to do it as the fullest version of you, with a few real ones walking right beside you. You've got this. Now go let the right people see who you really are.